Hello and welcome to our monthly Q&A. Can everyone hear me? If you can, give me a thumbs up. Good. Okay. I'm Sandra Wallace, and I want to welcome you to our Q&A tonight, which is always on every first Monday of the month. I'm just wondering, can you see me in the screen at all? No? Give me a thumbs down if you can't see me. You can see me? Okay, great. All right. So I wanted to just start by welcoming you to our monthly Q&A. This is an opportunity for us to gather and answer some questions that come in through our website on a regular basis. And so I am going to start by just bringing up some of the questions that we have been asked, some of the common questions. And this is obviously the December session, and we sometimes take the full hour. Sometimes we are just here for half an hour, however long it takes to address people's questions regarding different topics. So tonight we're going to focus on anxiety and answer some of the questions that came in. So this question comes in from Paula. And her question is, what is the most effective approach for successfully treating OCD and trauma? This question comes sometimes because trauma will hide. I often say that there's many people out there that are living with trauma from the past, and depending on the severity of it, it can really impact both anxiety, OCD, and trauma. So when treating OCD and trauma together, along with the anxiety that it creates, we need to look at a few different things. With both of these conditions, our symptoms can be really quite similar in certain ways, because both OCD, trauma, and anxiety will change our brain, and both can lead to an elevated level of anxiety and often to depression as well. The nice thing is both can be treated with cognitive behavior therapy and ERP. Now, I often will write notes just to make sure that I cover everything. So I'm just going to mention a few things. With trauma, just like OCD, we need to be able to face our fears over and over in order to become desensitized to them. In the situation of trauma we can hold on to for a very long time and not even realize it sometimes till decades later or years later that it's the trauma that is holding us back alongside the OCD. So again, being able to treat both is very comforting to know. And in both situations, we are dealing with the fear that we have learned to cope with, but we are dealing with it by starting to confront it now and being able to do that in a gradual way so that we are able to have wins and victories over the thoughts of the trauma. So in the situation of trauma, if we face the fears, we realize and can recognize that it's not as scary of a thing now as it was back when it originally occurred. And I don't want to say this to belittle or minimize it, because it can be very devastating, but we can learn to live with and deal through the trauma over a period of time. Interesting enough, when I did some research on trauma, one research in particular, when it came to the United States, 70% of the United States have experienced at least one form of trauma. And now, not everyone having experienced trauma will go on to have difficulty with it. Many people can overcome it, but there is a small percentage that it will lead to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I know this is not maybe as relevant for some people, but I wanted to share that there's two forms of trauma-related disorders, one being acute stress disorder. And in this type of a trauma-related disorder, the concern is resolved within a period of 1 month. When it goes beyond 1 month, that's when it becomes post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's really key and essential to have early detection, early diagnosis, so that we can start working through the OCD and the trauma and the experience that someone has had. Now, even though the memories of the trauma will still be with you for long periods of time, it will have less power over you and your emotions, just like it does with OCD. So it's nice to know that both can be treated simultaneously. Now, sometimes it may involve 2 therapists that you need to work with, or 2 coaches, one in the expertise lane of OCD and one in the expertise lane of trauma-related disorders. And sometimes if you're blessed and lucky enough, you may have somebody that can do both, because both of those things are part of their expertise. Now, very specific learning and implementation for each. So we've got to target exactly what's going on in the OCD realm as well as the trauma. Okay, so now what we tend to do often leading up to treatment, prior to treatment, is we tend to avoid. So avoidance in itself is a coping strategy when faced with certain sensations, feelings, images, or thoughts, or memories brought on by the obsession or past trauma. So I hope that's helpful in answering that question. The next question we have is, how can I manage work or school-related anxiety? Great question, because the way you manage it at work might be very different than when you're in school, or vice versa. So breaking tasks into smaller steps. I like to refer to that as chunking things down. Divide your workload into smaller, more manageable tasks to reduce feelings of overwhelm. This can help because when we have a lot of tasks at hand, it may just seem really overwhelming, and as a result, we do nothing. So if we're able to break it down and see it in segments, it sometimes alleviates some of the anxiety. Another thing is prioritize tasks. What needs to be done currently, and what are things that can wait maybe a little bit longer? And the other key to that is setting realistic deadlines to avoid last minute stress. And when I say deadlines, I often refer to a word called SMART, and it stands for setting goals. So the S stands for being very specific about your goals. The M is measurable. Can you measure your goals? And A, are they attainable? And R, are they realistic? And T, can be done in a timely fashion. Seeking support is key. Communicating with supervisors or teachers about your challenges and explore available accommodations. There's times in my practice when I'm coaching individuals that are students going through post-secondary school. A lot of times there's that overwhelmed feel of anxiety, and they just don't know how they're going to get through it. So sometimes I will make recommendations to the professors that they allow the individual to be able to have longer periods of time when doing a exam, or maybe deadlines being able to be stretched out a bit longer so they feel they've got that breathing room. And this often works really well. And the teachers and professors are very accommodating. If they recognize that someone needs that additional support, they're more than willing to be able to provide it. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of strategic planning to plan out different parts of the academic year. Another question is, what can I do to improve my sleep and manage anxiety-related insomnia? Great question. Establishing a bedtime routine. Just like we have a routine at work, we go to work or we go to school and we have this routine and we almost know what we're going to do next often. It's just so embedded and ingrained in our mind what to do. We need to be the same when it comes to our bedtime routine, being mindful of the time of day, preparing for bed, creating a calm pre-sleep routine. And often that's the opportunity to signal your body that it's time to start winding down. So you don't want to be on a blue on the blue light, which is part of the computer. We want to reduce that exposure to screens before bedtime. So that's computer, TV, even our cell phones. These things can interfere with sleep. There's been lots of studies to prove that. And we want to create a comfortable sleep environment. So something that's conducive to rest. Maybe a comfortable mattress, minimal distractions, soft music playing, whatever it is for you. And sometimes you need to try, it's trial and error. You need to try different things to find out what works for you. And obviously the relaxation techniques can go a long ways. I always tell people we want to practice the relaxation techniques in the comfort of our own home over the course of several weeks or months, so that when we are feeling stressed outside of our house in a work environment or school environment, we can pull on those resources to help calm us down. So it may look like a coping strategy like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, which is where we tend to relax our body starting at the top and work our way down with the different parts of our body. So tensing and relaxing, or a guided imagery. There's so many good apps out on the internet now that can help walk you through. They're audio visual apps. There was ones that can give you directions step by step on how to calm and soothe your both your mind and body. The next question we have is, how can I reduce anxiety related to specific triggers or phobias? Really, really good. This is important. I always tell people, be aware of your triggers. Sometimes they're really easy to identify and other times they're not. So when we are looking at specific triggers or phobias, we need to approach them on a gradual basis. If we don't do it gradually, it can be really difficult to get to the higher anxiety-provoking items if we rush through the process or we try to take on too much too quickly. So again, gradual confront feared situations or objects in a manner to build that tolerance. Another way to help with this is CBT. It stands for Cognitive Behavior Therapy. With cognitive behavior therapy, you're working alongside a therapist to identify and challenge your irrational thoughts, contributing to anxiety. Now, although it's a form of psychotherapy, it's a different type of psychotherapy in the sense that we're dealing with the here and now, and we're very specific, and our goals are intentional to be able to reach specific goals to overcome these triggers, phobias, obsessions. They're also focused on the problem solving, and we want to be goal-oriented. So it's more than just what some people refer to as talk therapy. We don't just talk about our past. Even though our past is really important, it's sometimes a really good clue as to an indicator as to why we got to where we are today. But we focus with CBT. My focus is, what are we going to do in the here and now to move forward and to have a better quality of life? Again, mindfulness and relaxation techniques, practicing mindfulness to stay present and manage your anxiety symptoms. Next is a question on the long-term outlook for living with anxiety. Because sometimes when people get diagnosed, they think, this is it. I have no future. I won't ever be able to work, have a relationship, engage in different careers that I want to do because my anxiety is holding me back. Well, it's not the case, and we need to be able to comfort and reassure one another that we can live a very quality life and productive life alongside living with OCD and anxiety. So the therapy, the long-term psychotherapy, such as CBT, can be effective in managing and coping, but we, again, have to be specific and goal-oriented. And another thing that can help is medication. When it comes to anxiety, there's a group of drugs called SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SNRI, selective norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. Both of those are intended to treat anxiety, depression, and OCD. Now, depending on the individual, if they're taking the medication for specifically for OCD, the anxiety comes down and it takes the edge off so that the person that's going through the CBT that lives with OCD, their anxiety can decrease enough to take the edge off so that we can start the process of CBT. Now, for anxiety alone, there's a different class of drugs called anxiolytics, and they're intended for short-term use. So there's many different things that we can draw on to help us to be able to start the process of overcoming whatever it is that the fears that are holding us back. Lifestyle changes can be another big piece. Adopting a healthy lifestyle. So regular exercise, and it doesn't have to necessarily be joining a gym and going to work out every night of the week. It can be something as simple as stopping throughout the day and going for a long walk, or just changing our environment. Sometimes just changing the scenery and shifting to a different environment can help us and recharge ourselves. So getting out, setting a timer, if you're working from home, setting a timer and getting up and moving and going for a walk for 20 minutes, 30 minutes can make all the difference. And also a balanced diet. If we're snacking and eating a lot of high carbs, we will have that instant boost, but then we'll also have a crash that follows. So we want to make sure that our balanced diet is part of our daily lifestyle. And these things can have positive impact in our long-term mental health. So can children and adolescents experience anxiety, and how can it be addressed? And the answer is yes, absolutely, they can. We need to open communication with children and adolescents because they have a lot of stressors that they're going through based on their age and where they're at in life. There's so much peer pressure and pressure that comes from social media that people have to look a certain way and act a certain way. And we've got the Facebooks and the TikToks and the all the different social platforms that make one think that they need to be able to do things and act in a certain way. So this just will often reinforce even more anxiety for children and adolescents. And then there's also bullying that takes place in the schools. And so it can be really tough for those people. So we need to be able to seek out professional help, consult with a pediatrician or child psychologist. There are psychologists in the schools, in the school systems that can help with this as well.